Hello, my name is Ripdala. You might know me as Bonikichi from TikTok. Today I want to talk about how some people might not feel like they're getting better at art. I wanted to preface this by saying I felt like this for a long time. I started drawing digitally in about December of 2020. I never studied, and most importantly, I never even really figured out what direction I wanted to take with my art. I kind of started off just drawing whatever, and then I slowly moved towards what I would call a roomscape, which is just a landscape piece but of a bedroom. The biggest reason for this is because of the perspective guide on Procreate is so powerful that you don't have to be really even that good at art, at physically drawing, to make something that looks like this or like this. And these look pretty good, but with my knowledge now, it's good for the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean. For example, some of these backgrounds do have very strong foreground, midground, and background elements, but I never consciously knew this was a rule for creating backgrounds. And so some of my backgrounds do lack this. And that's not to just say they're bad, but they do lack a lot of artistic skill. And I do know the controversy when it comes to saying an artist is talented, but I do truly believe that for the first year or so of my digital art journey, it was me purely relying on talent and not too much skill because I was using so many of these powerful tools that Procreate had. It was around June, I guess last summer, that I decided that I wanted to get better at art. This was before I really knew that I wanted to even be a background artist because I never even got good enough at drawing characters to even really decide if I wanted to stick with backgrounds or do character design. At this point, around June 2022, I did realize that I wanted to be an industry artist. I realized that I didn't have to be some kind of starving artist, and that if I wanted to get better, it didn't have to be through the social media route. I didn't have to rely on just gaining a bunch of followers and that would pay my rent. Now that I can draw characters, I can confidently say that I do love drawing backgrounds, and that is where I want to be as an artist. I want to be a background painter or a background designer or maybe even a visual development artist because, as you can see, I do like my lighting and stuff. But to get back to my main point, for a long time I never really applied myself to my studies, and I would end up drawing stuff like this and not really understanding why it was bad or maybe even being proud of it at the time, regardless of the fact that it lacks any kind of artistic skill. That is to be kind of rough on myself, but I didn't really apply any techniques, and I would go so far as to not even clean up the line art. I would just throw on colors onto a sketch, and I didn't know how to paint at this time, so it really didn't work. So for a long time I was just in this rut of drawing things that looked kind of bad and then getting kind of depressed about it, feeling bad. There's a lot of drawings that never even saw the light of day, that never made it out of Procreate just because of how bad they looked. And I know a lot of you can relate to this, but something I realize now as an artist is that a bad drawing is not something to cry or whine about. It's something to kind of learn from, and it adds to your experience to know what not to do just as much as it does to learn what to do. So like I said, I would really beat myself up for not being able to draw certain things like people or characters especially. And now with a little bit of hindsight of actually being able to draw characters and what it takes to want to actually learn more as an artist and study more, it's very foolish of me to have ever kind of felt bad about not knowing how to draw something. I'd never properly learned how to draw. And so a lot of you might even beat yourself up as well over this fact that you don't know how to draw something, but you never took the time and effort it takes to put on a study and learn how to draw this thing from scratch. The fundamentals as well plays a very big part. I would argue as soon as you decide that you want to get into digital art, you should pick up the fundamentals and start learning. Now I know to some people this might turn art into this daunting task that you have to learn, kind of like a school subject, but you progress very fast as an artist. And I know that sounds very obvious, but like I said in a recent video, in many cases your creativity level will go up and up and up, and it'll keep rising while your skill level kind of stays down at the same level you started at because you never took the time to really study these different subjects. And so when this happens, you start to really feel disgusted with your own art when you can't draw something regardless of the fact that you never learned how to draw this thing. This of course causes a lot of inner turmoil as an artist, as you start to really hate yourself and you stop wanting to draw more. When you take the route that I suggest, which is really just getting into art and studying right away, your skill level does progress with your creativity, and so you'll never really feel this this disgust with your art, seeing it as almost mediocre when you see very amazing art pieces on Instagram every day, seeing other people's art and comparing it to your own. When you're seeing other people's art, you're getting motivated, you're getting influenced by their creativity, and this builds your own creativity. And this takes us back to that point that when your creativity is just going up and up and up, and you're seeing all this beautiful art, and you can't output anything to kind of be on this level similar to this, it starts to really diminish your self-worth as an artist, and you start to feel like maybe this isn't for me, maybe I got in over my head, maybe I am not a real artist. I only recently really started feeling like an artist in July when I started studying. Up until this point, yes, I did have artists in like my social media handles and stuff, and I had my DeviantArt page, but I had always felt like I was not a real artist. I never felt like I was a real illustrator. I kind of felt like an imposter, which is where imposter syndrome comes from. Your creativity just gets so developed and your skill level stays at this mediocre to beginner stage, and you just really start to feel like you might not be an artist. You might just be someone who draws for fun sometime. I did feel this way for a long time, for the first entire 2 years almost of digital art, because I only recently got into studying and stopped feeling this way. There were a lot of things that I could not draw. There were a lot of things that I struggled with drawing and that I would give up on. I would get very frustrated. There were a lot of visions that I had for a piece, and they were very creative visions that I ended up just having to give up on and abandon because I wasn't at the skill level that I needed to be in order to finish these pieces. For example, I struggled painting digitally for a long time. It was something that I really just could not wrap my head around. It was this piece right here that I gave up on and ended up coming back to maybe a year later to finish, because the way I had went about drawing the line art and stuff for this piece, I could not have possibly finished it without painting. And so I never finished it until almost a year later. I came back to it with the determination to really learn how to paint digitally. And so I watched a couple videos, tried to observe other artists, and I painted this, which it still isn't the best, but I still am very proud of this piece for what it did for me as an artist. It let me know that I don't have to give up on pieces. I can simply learn what it takes to finish a piece. And this feeling is very exhilarating in a sense that you conquer your own shortcoming. And this feeling is very empowering as an artist. You know now that you don't have to give up anymore. Study if you've come across something that you don't understand. Art is just problem solving and learning how to solve these problems fast and efficiently. Before you start to feel bad as an artist about not being able to keep up with the artists around you, or not being able to even keep up with your own creativity, another issue that people often don't take into account, that we don't just start building our creativity levels when we get into art. We start building these creativity levels from day one, as soon as we're born almost, as soon as we can comprehend. This means we have years of experience in being creative. So when we get to this very insane level of creativity and our skill level isn't anywhere near as polished, it becomes very discouraging, and it makes you almost want to give up on art. And I equated this to being a bad artist, which is not true at all. It equates to being a beginner artist, and a beginner artist is something much different from a bad artist. Now, the problem some of you might be experiencing is that you still are a beginner artist. You think you're a more intermediate to expert or advanced artist, at least your experience level, when in reality it's really only at the beginning stage still, even after all this time that you've been putting in. And that does sound kind of discouraging in and of itself, but the truth is that a lot of us don't start studying the fundamentals until years later. I am a prime example. So even though I may have been growing a bit as an artist from my experience firsthand, I wasn't really learning these different topics and subjects. I was simply learning my own way how to make do with what I did know for that specific piece. I felt like I was a bad artist because one day I would draw something perfectly fine and the next day I couldn't draw that same thing. And this would make me feel like I wasn't even an artist sometimes. So that's how a lot of my work ended up getting tossed aside. Some that I know I could have probably came back to and just tried a bit harder and have really been able to encapsulate my vision into my work. So I do think, as boring as it sounds, studying the fundamentals specifically is a very important part of just getting into art in general. It's very hard to want to continue something that you're not getting better at. When you do come across this feeling, you should just really take the time to learn these things. And so if there's 3 things I want you to take from this video, it is that 1, you need to find out what you want to do as an artist. And that might be kind of hard considering there's so many different professions and fields and even just types of artistic outlets. But starting and kind of playing around in all of these different elements is where you begin really finding and learning what you want to do. The second thing is that when you don't know how to draw something, all it takes is a couple studies to really learn the subject or learn the fundamentals required. When you come across a roadblock as an artist, don't just give up and abandon your pieces. Start learning and trying to analyze what you did wrong or what you could do better or what kind of study would work for this topic so that you can study it and learn it, and then next time you come across this issue, you will already know what to do really. The third thing is that you should never beat yourself up over something that you don't know. You're not going to sit and beat yourself up over not knowing how to speak a different language or not knowing how to play an instrument that you've never learned how to play. But for some reason, a lot of artists sit and beat themselves up over not knowing how to draw something that they've never learned how to draw. And so I cannot stress to you enough that you need to learn how to draw the things that you don't know how to draw if you plan on drawing them. Of course, if you're not going to draw backgrounds, you don't need to learn the fundamentals of backgrounds, but if you're going to draw characters, you should really learn these fundamentals for drawing characters before you just give up on the next character that you draw because you think it looks bad or the form or gesture isn't looking right. There are tons of videos on YouTube to learn how to master gesture, to master form, and to master just about anything as an artist. And so when you sit and beat yourself up for not knowing how to draw these things, you're really just wasting time as well as hurting yourself as an artist. One more quick thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time drawing and they expect to draw these crazy good pieces. And so I guess the fourth thing that you can take from this is that you need to be consistent with drawing every day as well as studying when you need to study. You are the only person who's going to make sure you're getting better at art. You're the only person who's going to make sure you're studying and learning and improving every day, every month, every year as an artist. So now that you know what you need to do as an artist to get better, you just need to be consistent and you need to put in the actual work. You really don't have an excuse to keep this attitude of I'm not a good artist or I'm not as good as said artist when you can simply get better as an artist. There's no one really holding you back from getting better except for yourself and this kind of self-pity that you have when it comes to feeling like you're not a good artist when in reality you're just a beginner. Like I said, you need to really take the time to learn the fundamentals. Beginner artist can look like anything. If you've been drawing for 30 years but you just are now getting into the fundamentals of art, you might be more at the beginner to intermediate stage. You might not be a master because you don't really know these different techniques and these different discipline and skills. So no matter what age you may be, it's never too late as an artist to continue your journey in learning and getting better and really studying every day or drawing every day and studying when you need to. If you enjoyed this video as well as maybe experienced something like this, I do have a video up on Art Block. If you wanted to check that out, I would be very pleased. You can also go ahead and leave any video idea you might have in the comments, as I would love to talk about more of the topics that you guys are interested in. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you decide to stick around on our journey as artists. It's been real. I will see you guys next time.